And as we sit today, I'll invite you to, as always, find some comfort in your posture, finding that balance, making that first conscious choice within your practice of how is it that you need to be supported. And then once you make that first conscious choice, making the second conscious choice, a little bit of sense withdrawal, either closing your eyes or setting your gaze downward. And then finally, that third conscious choice, choosing a focal point, choosing this anchor of our body that's always present. And oftentimes, just simply noticing our breath. But of course, you're welcome to choose any of your anchors. Sometimes that pointed concentration of just breath or just hands is quite helpful. You might also move from a flashlight to a floodlight type of opening. So you're just aware of all of your senses beyond your vision. Just noticing sound, touch, temperature, sensation of support beneath you, space around you. Just taking these first few moments to settle into the anchor of your body, and this body that will tether us back again and again. And we'll come back to this simple practice again and again, just inviting our attention back to the present by noticing breath, movement in our body, sounds coming to us, and also observing what's happening in our mind when our mind wanders and we choose to bring it back. Sometimes noticing thinking mind arises. What kinds of thoughts arise? Perhaps noticing the intention behind the thought. And sometimes when thoughts just appear, we can recognize we didn't have a choice in the thought that simply appeared. But once we notice that we're in thinking mind, then we get to choose again. Just choosing to notice breath, space between breath. This week, we've been sitting with the last three steps in the Eightfold Noble Path, oftentimes translated as effort, our mindfulness, and then our concentration or our absorption of the present moment in its fullness. And those three steps are often talked about as our mental disciplines, but really they're our mental development. We start first with just observing what's happening in the present moment, and then inviting in these gentle disciplines, noticing what kind of effort we're working with, and recognizing that part of our effort is just simply our perseverance. The fact that we set aside time to sit and practice, that we set aside time to be with ourselves. And our mindfulness, our sati, it's simply the practice of being in the present moment. It's not always easy. All of these things can be simple, but we practice again and again. Are we being kind in our effort to return to the present again and again? Are we mindful of the way we're speaking to ourselves? And then as we follow these steps on this noble eightfold path, the path leading us in the direction of connectivity, sometimes noticing when we disconnect and then we choose to come back and reconnect. All of that culminates to our samadhi, which means a full absorption, a full connectivity, a recognition that nothing is separate from us and nothing is missing from us. A reminder, we're not trying to make that feeling happen. We're just practicing reconnecting in the moments that we disconnect. Remembering we've already set this time aside and nothing is missing from us in this moment and nothing is disconnected. Just only remembering connection to this breath, reattuning to this moment through what we're experiencing in our body. Anytime we notice our mind wandered or we got wrapped up in a thought, that's again our moment of choice. Recognize what kind of effort to recognize and perhaps give ourselves gratitude for our perseverance, our choice to stay. Noticing what kind of mindfulness, how is it that we're observing our mind? And can we invite in some kindness and some grace for ourselves? And in moments, just settling in to just the pure absorption of the present moment. It might be just for that tiny half a heartbeat of the space between breaths. And we can also remind ourselves of just the innate goodness of our breathing, just reconnecting with one breath at a time, inclining our mind to notice those little moments of full connectivity. Our attention and our breath are in the same place at the same time. And within this concept we've been working with, these last three steps, I'm going to read a passage from a teacher called Aya. She was a really amazing teacher of Buddhist psychology. And she's specifically talking here about these three steps, how they work together: our effort, our perseverance, our mindfulness, and our connectivity. And these mental developments, are needed to stretch the mind, to make it malleable, pliable, and expansive. To stretch the mind is necessary in order to encompass the whole of these teachings. When the mind is still limited and shrunken in its capacity, though we live and survive, we will only be able to understand in that limited way. The Buddha's path always consisted of study and practice. We know the direction, but we have to practice to experience this mind expansion. Only that makes it possible to see with an inner vision a different reality than the one that we've been used to. The mind yearns for release from constant thinking and longs to be peaceful and at ease. This is probably the reason people begin meditation. Every mind is capable of utter peace and utter quiet. It is a matter of practice, of application, of gentle determination, and full absorption in the present moment. And again, we practice when we notice and observe how it is that we're practicing. And in this way, we begin to develop our mind in a new way and develop a relationship with ourselves in a new way. And settling again into a bit more silence, maybe noticing if any of those teachings landed. But reminder, sometimes we can go up into thinking mind, and the practice is to observe. Ah, yep, there's thinking mind again, trying to figure something out, and thinking about the future and noticing the past, and then coming back and choosing the present again and again, and inviting it in with kindness, noticing the effort with which we apply our practice. Breathing and aware of our breathing, sensation in our body and aware of the sensation. And noticing when we go into thinking mind, can we invite our attention back with kindness? I'll read again this teaching from Ayakema with a little addition. And when we enter into our meditative absorptions, the mind stretches, becomes pliable, soft, malleable, and expansive. If we stop the practice, naturally the mind shrinks back to its usual and common limitations. We can compare this with practicing yoga exercises. When we stretch our body persistently, we find we can touch our toes with no difficulty over time. The practice makes our muscles pliable, soft, malleable, and expansive. When we stop practicing our physical yoga for 6 months or so, we notice a change and we begin again. The muscles shrink just like our mind. To stretch the mind, to make it malleable, pliable, expansive, it is necessary to encompass the whole of these teachings: our effort, perseverance, mindfulness, our connection. When the mind is still limited and shrunken in its capacity, though we do live and survive, we will only be able to understand in this limited way. This path is always consistent with study and practice. We know the direction, but we must practice in order to experience this mind expansion. Only that makes it possible to see with an inner vision a different reality from the one we've been used to. The mind yearns for release from constant thinking and longs to be peaceful and at ease, which is probably the reason for beginning to meditate. Every mind is capable of utter peace and utter quiet. It is a matter of practice, of application, of gentle determination, and full absorption in the present moment. And we just continue to practice, just connecting with ourselves, the sensations in our body. I'll invite you to take a moment to choose how it is that you would like to continue practicing into the day, into the weekend. It might be just a particular word that arises, a quality of thought you'd like to continue with. You might also take a moment to plan ahead just for a moment. How is it tomorrow that I'm going to choose to sit or take a walking meditation? Just take a moment, create an intention for today, perhaps for tomorrow. Utilizing our thinking mind to create a plan so that we can draw our practice forward. Just taking a moment there. And then I'll invite you to either draw your palms together, maybe stack hands over your heart, whatever your closing practice, habits, rituals, and ending with two loving kindness phrases. Repeat them to yourself if they make sense. May we remember the innate goodness of our breath. May we remember the innate goodness of our breath. May we remember our deep connection to ourselves and each other. May we remember our deep connection to ourselves and each other. And whenever you feel complete, taking a moment, inviting in some movement, starting with your eyelids. As always, thank you for your practice. Thank you all for being here. Thank yourself for setting aside the time.